And rightly so, many members of the LGBT community in Canada were like, well, it's 10 years later, way to catch up, guys. But I think it's very powerful that when, in the context of a political party, you can change a viewpoint such that people who might vote on party lines or might look to a political party to set the tone for what is acceptable in Canada, that we can move that to be a place where now all of our major political parties in Canada support a simple principle. So I don't want to make this partisan, but more as an acknowledgement that over time views can change, happens on both sides of the aisle, and I think that that's very positive. And I want to thank activists writ large on any issue for persistence in doing so.
I think the honourable member will have about 4.5 minutes remaining in the time for questions and comments when the House next returns to debate on the question. I think we'll get started with statements by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for Nunavut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This government's goal of generating a sustainable economy while protecting the environment is also the goal of the most recent draft Nunavut Land Use Plan. This government's continued collaboration with the Nunavut Planning Commission on this draft will help fulfill the government's mandate to strengthen the relationship with Indigenous people and honour their obligations under the Nunavut Land Claims Agreement. Last April, the planning partners, including Canada, were informed and agreed upon an extended January 13th deadline to submit their final written input on this draft. However, Mr. Speaker, not all federal departments have made their submission a priority. Full engagement from these departments will ensure a complete and sufficient land use plan that works for all those involved. With the deadline fast approaching, I strongly encourage the Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs to take the lead and ensure input from all federal departments is submitted before the January 13th deadline. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pontiac.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the 50th anniversary of HoC, a Canadian charity that sends kids from low-income families to overnight summer camps. Established in 1966 by staff members at Kilku Camp, a magical place that nourished my growth from boy to man, HoC has provided children with over 1,500 unforgettable summer experiences. Along with its 40 partner camps, HoC shares a common belief in the life-changing power of summer camp. A belief that less privileged kids deserve a summer experience to help them develop their character, their tenacity, and their resilience in an iconic Canadian wilderness setting. Mr. Speaker, when I think of summer camp, I see the smiles of lifelong friends. I feel the triumph over conquered fears, and I recall learning who I am and who I aspire to be. Leadership and self-confidence are earned and developed over time, and HoC commits to sending a child to camp for as long as they are old enough to attend. Many HoC campers are then hired on as counselors. So thank you, HoC, for 50 years of life-changing experience. Rip Ram, Razzle Scram.
The honourable member for Edmonton Manning.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I went to school last week, more than one school, in fact. I met with students at 7 schools in my riding: St. John Bosco School, Overlander School, Homesteader School, Belvedere School, John D. Bracco School, Sifton School, and St. Elizabeth Seton School. Different schools, different grades, but the students had one thing in common. They wanted to know or to learn about Parliament and the role of an MP. They want to be engaged citizens of this country. They can't wait to be old enough to vote. I was impressed by their enthusiasm and their thirst for knowledge. I told them that when I came back to Ottawa, I would tell my colleagues in the House of Commons about my experiences. And the students of Edmonton Manning are the best in the country. Promise made, promise kept. Thank you.
The honourable member,
the honourable member for Laurentide-Labelle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to salute the work of all those who make this institution work, without whom we would not be able to sit as parliamentarians. These workers, often in the shadows, who pick up the garbage, clean up, move the furniture and get the rooms ready, deliver and manage our mail, the parliamentary the PPS and the Corporate Security Office to protect us, the pages, the guides, the analysts, the clerks, the Hansard team, the translators and interpreters, the technicians, the maintenance teams, the financial and material management teams, the locksmiths, the drivers, the multimedia services, and the caterers and food services, and undoubtedly many members of teams that we don't even know about. And I tip my hat to all of those who help us do our job. We are only 338 MPs and 105 senators, but over 4,000 people work here, and without them, Parliament would simply grind to a halt. Mr. Speaker, thank you to you and your team.
The honourable member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Tuesday, over 1,700 young Canadian scientists sent an open letter to the Prime Minister expressing their concern that recent government decisions have not been based on science. To quote, hundreds of scholars have decried weak Canadian environmental assessments and regulatory reviews and cautioned about the risks involved in large-scale energy projects. Environmental and health tragedies such as the Calgary floods, Mount Polley Dam and asbestos show that incompletely evaluated or mitigated risks have real consequences for Canadians, our environment and the legacy we leave future generations. Mr. Speaker, these scientists have obviously lost faith in the government's ability or commitment to make transparent decisions informed by the best available evidence. They simply ask that this government act on science, that it assess cumulative impacts, that it prevent conflict of interest through full public disclosure. They and all other young Canadians will have to live with the consequences of this government's decisions.
Member for North Vancouver.
Mr. Speaker, last week I was welcomed to Handsworth Secondary School in North Vancouver, where I had the opportunity to talk to grade 11 social studies students about the issue of climate change. As MPs, we all know that one of our greatest responsibilities is to work to ensure a secure future for our children and for Canada's youth. As I stood in front of 200 students at Handsworth in the high school that is attended by my 2 teenage daughters, this responsibility felt very real. Mr. Speaker, through my discussions with these students, it was clear to me that the issue of climate change is of critical importance to students. The concern they feel for their future was evident in their questions, their comments, and in the ideas they brought forward as to what we can and should be doing to address climate change. I'd like to thank the students of Handsworth for reminding me that our young people are very much engaged, are eager to be part of taking on the challenges posed by climate change, and are looking to us for leadership and action. Thank you.
The honourable member for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Speaker, it's been a very exciting few weeks in my riding. Today I'm proud to recognize and congratulate a number of constituents and organizations doing some outstanding work. Rhonda Barnett from Steelworks Design in Cavan Monaghan was elected chair of the Canadian Association of Manufacturers and Exporters. Rhonda is also the first female chair of that organization. Woodville's James Barker Band continuing their success with a number of engagements, including a contract with Universal Music Canada. Lindsay's All Flaws in Progress for their nomination for Video of the Year, produced by Josh Wood at this year's Covenant Awards. And Lindsay Strombellas, fresh off gold and platinum records, performing in front of huge crowds on their current world tour. Cavan's Emma McManus, who earned a basketball scholarship to Central Connecticut University. In Kennington, the figure skating club is now officially debt-free thanks to the hard work of its volunteers. And finally, to the Pinestone Resort in Haliburton for hosting the Canadian National Pond Hockey Tournament again this year. Please join me in congratulating these fantastic people and organizations.
The honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
Mr. Speaker, earlier this week in celebration of Louis Riel Day, I had the privilege of attending the very first raising of the Métis flag on Parliament Hill. Louis Riel was elected to this place 3 times, but was never able to take his seat. Like Louis Riel himself, the raising of the Métis flag here on Parliament Hill is a powerful symbol of Métis history, strength of spirit, and cultural pride. He was a defender of the fundamental values that Canadians hold dear, including equality and social justice. All Canadians, whether they are Métis or not, can be proud of what Louis Riel accomplished. Our government is committed to reconciliation with the Métis people, and we are coming together in partnership with the Métis Nation and the provinces and territories to work with Métis people on how they want to exercise their rights and advance long-term reconciliation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Burlington.
Mr. Speaker, last week I had the opportunity to participate in Burlington's commemorations to honour our veterans. Today, I would like to thank the members in my community who made this week special for those that have served. I want to thank the Burlington Legion, the Burl Oak Naval Veterans, and some of the amazing individuals who give generously to honour our veterans. Individuals like Kristen Courtney, who organizes a veterans luncheon every year in Halton. Or like Bill Reed, the singing veteran, who shares his songs of war with the commuters at Burlington GO stations, and who for almost 3 decades has provided services at retirement homes for the veterans not able to attend the official events. And the grade 12 drama students at M.M. Robinson High School, who each year write and direct a play on Remembrance Day. The students deserved a standing ovation as their story was heart-wrenching, honest, and passionate. They truly honored the veterans present. We must take a moment every day to think of our Canadian men and women who have served and who are currently serving. Our veterans serve our country with bravery, honor, and dignity, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for protecting the values we cherish and making our world a safer place.
The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to pay homage to one of our own. Fred King of Caledon, British Columbia, was a former World War II veteran and retired member of Parliament. Fred was a kind, caring man who gave back greatly to his community in many different ways that extended well beyond his time in Ottawa. From his time spent as a member of Parliament, Fred was a voice for farmers and agriculture. He also traveled much of Europe to ensure better collaboration between Canada and our NATO allies. He worked quietly to secure passage of persecuted religious minorities from communist dictatorships. In his own writing, he was most proud of the work he performed securing federally owned lands that could be used for Okanagan College's Penticton campus. Fred was a strong believer and supporter in our youth and the importance of upgrading skills and education. What I admired most about Fred was his sincere willingness to always help others, many who were complete strangers, never asking anything in return, only the desire to try and bring happiness and help to those who were in need. It is a privilege to consider Fred both a mentor of mine and a friend, and to recognize his contributions and service to the betterment of others. Fred now joins with the love of his life, Audrey, who passed away a few years ago. May they both rest in peace, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday was the one-year anniversary of my swearing in as Member of Parliament for Cambridge and North Dumfries, and I'm proud to stand here today representing the fine people of my riding. I am humbled and honoured by their support and the support of my family, Kristen, James, and Kennedy May. This weekend, the people of Cambridge will line the sidewalks of Hespeler Road for the 44th annual Santa Claus Parade. Every year, whether it's raining or snowing, and regardless of how cold it is, my constituents come out by the thousands to watch this extraordinary showcase of the schools, community organizations, businesses, and nonprofits that make our community so great. As I have the good fortune of having my office located on the parade route, I am proud to offer some holiday warmth for my constituents in the form of hot chocolate and candy canes. This Saturday, I encourage all of my constituents to come out to the Cambridge Santa Claus Parade for some family fun and stop by my office for some quick warmth. We'll see you there, Mr. Speaker.
Good job. Good job. The honourable member for London West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the weather begins to chill, all Canadians should have a place to call home that is safe, warm, and affordable. Last week, I had the great pleasure of announcing the 281 new affordable housing units in London and the surrounding area. One of the several facilities, including 77 Tecumseh Avenue West, located in my riding of London West, received $1.85 million for affordable housing units. 3 of these facilities are designated for residents with mental health challenges. I had the privilege of taking a tour of this incredible facility with local representatives from all levels of government. Our plan includes the doubling of current funding under the Investment in Affordable Housing Initiative, supported affordable housing for seniors, building and renovating shelters and transition houses for victims of family violence. Our government is developing a comprehensive national housing strategy that will chart the course for better housing, socio-economic and environmental outcomes. I will continue to deliver for the people of London West, and this government will continue to deliver our campaign promises for the betterment of all Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, here's a quote from Theodore Geisel, a.k.a. Dr. Zeus. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. This month is Movember, which highlights men's health by raising funds and educating Canadians about prostate cancer. It's predicted that by 2030, there will be 1.7 million men living with prostate cancer. But if it is detected early, the chance of survival beyond 5 years is 98%. My father passed away from prostate cancer, but because he took the early steps to visit his doctors and get checked, his time with us was prolonged by an incredible 15 years. Throughout November campaign, Mo Bros and Mo Sisters have funded over 1,200 health projects, and what started with 30 mustaches in 2003 has now expanded to 5 million. I encourage anyone who can grow a mustache to do so, and also to become physically active whenever possible. Finally, Mr. Speaker, here is a quote from the Lorax. 1, 2, 3, sport a mustache like me.
The honourable member for Fleetwood Port Kells.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many of us are concerned by what looks like a spike in the number and severity of incidents targeting Canadian minorities with messages of exclusion, fear, and hate. Perhaps there haven't been many, perhaps recent events have amplified our sensitivities, but one is too many, and on this issue it's never a bad time to be sensitive. If those responsible somehow feel emboldened or encouraged by recent developments, we need to disabuse them of those notions. Nobody gets to do that, not in the Canada that I've grown up in. And by the way, that's a Canadian value in case somebody was looking for one. Speaking of examples, the honourable member from Edmonton Centre is as good as it gets. As the Prime Minister's new Special Advisor on LGBTQ2 issues, he's a passionate standard bearer for the Canadian values of respect and equality. Every vulnerable community will be encouraged and made stronger by his efforts, more so as we in this place endorse them.
The honourable member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, we're so fortunate to live in Canada, where we aspire to be a nation that takes care of each other. In my riding of Courtenay Alberni, access to affordable housing has become an urgent and desperate matter. The situation is critical. People are living on unsafe derelict boats, in the bush and on the streets. In Port Alberni, a small city of only 17,000 people, more than half the residents can barely afford their rent, while the homeless shelter has only 12 beds. That shelter had to turn away more than 1,000 people last year because they simply didn't have room. We're blessed to have compassionate organizations such as the Port Alberni Shelter Society, the Comox Valley Coalition to End Homelessness, Dawn to Dawn, and the Oceanside Task Force to End Homelessness. Mr. Speaker, these organizations need urgent resources from Ottawa to help lift people out of homelessness and restore the dignity and the compassion that they deserve.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Today, the people of Ottawa stand united against the twin evils of racism and anti-Semitism. Over the last several days, a criminal has targeted peaceful Jews, Muslims, and Christians from the black community with hateful vandalism. We hope the police catch and the courts punish the perpetrators to the fullest extent of the law. Prime Minister Laurier said, "Canada is free, and freedom is its nationality." Mr. Speaker, our people are free to be who they are, free to believe what they want, free to worship how they choose, and free to do it all without fear. Racist vandalism is an attack on that freedom and on every Canadian. So we stand in solidarity with its victims and renew our commitment to our freedom and the equality of all of our people.
The honourable member for Monterville. Bullying and cyberbullying is a serious issue for many Canadian families and communities. According to a recent study, more than 40% of youth claim being a victim of cyberbullying, and more than 60% have witnessed cyberbullying. In this Anti-Bullying Awareness Week, I encourage Canadians to get more informed on this issue, as well as the devastating consequences it may have on its victims and the resources available helping to combat it. I especially encourage parents and teachers to visit the website Get Cyber Safe to get informed on how to recognize and prevent cyberbullying. I also invite you to discover Bully Text, an interactive tool offered by the RCMP that aims to entice conversation amongst youth about these questions. On a brighter side, more than 70% of Canadian youth who have witnessed cyberbullying claim to have intervened. Let's follow their example at school, at work, at home, and in all spheres of life, and let's put an end to bullying.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Waved the white flag of surrender on NAFTA, and they are now trying their very best to backpedal. The parliamentary secretary to the trade minister said, don't worry, there will only be small tweaks. Now, if their small tweaks are anything like their small deficits, we are all in big, big trouble. Mr. Speaker, Canada needs NAFTA. Why are the Liberals so eager to sell out Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the only flag we're waving is the red and white Canadian flag. Mr. Speaker, we're going to defend Canadians' interests across the board on every matter of trade and investment in order to help Canada, in order to help Canadian jobs. The NAFTA agreement is an important, positive piece of that picture. We know that. We know the numbers. We will work to show our American partners that these numbers are valid for them as well, that the agreement is positive for them as well. And, Mr. Speaker, it's a 20-year-old agreement. It is normal to make changes to an agreement over time, especially tweaking it.
The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals were going to do what was in the best interests of Canadians, they would not have so foolishly and naively opened the doors to renegotiating NAFTA. But now that they have, and given what the parliamentary secretary just said, will the government tell Canadians exactly what is on the table? Will it be farmers that will be sold out? Will it be the auto sector that is going to be rejected? What is on the table? What are the Liberals going to sell out?
Yes. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, we won't take lessons from anybody as regards trade. Our record on trade is impeccable. Yet again, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Minister of International Trade are out bringing home the bacon and making sure we can ship bacon and other pork products to other countries in the world, as we are working on with Argentina, as was announced. We brought home coal, Mr. Speaker. We got CETA across the finish line, Mr. Speaker. We opened up China to canola markets. We opened up China and Mexico to beef markets. Our record on trade within 12 months is far superior to anything the previous government produced.
The Honourable Government House Leader. Opposition Leader.
Remember, every one of those agreements was what the Conservative government started and finished, and the Liberals could barely get that done when we handed it to them on a silver platter. Mr. Speaker, TPP, another agreement that sectors are very concerned about. So are the Liberals going to take the same approach to TPP that they've taken to NAFTA and say, well, you know, maybe we'll renegotiate, maybe we'll do something, or maybe we won't? Or will the Prime Minister at APEC be persistent, consistent, and advocate for TPP for Canada?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, our position on NAFTA has been clear from the outset. That treaty was negotiated in secret by the previous government. We committed during the election, Mr. Speaker, to consulting Canadians. We are consulting Canadians. I, Mr. Speaker, have been to all 10 provinces and am now working on the territories, listening to Canadians. The Trade Committee is doing the same thing. When we are in a position to understand whether or not that treaty is a good treaty for Canada, we'll make a determination at that point.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer is a friend of all Canadians, and you know why? Because he tells it like it is, unlike this government. In his report yesterday, he wrote, quote, "Parliamentarians may wish to confirm that the additional spending proposed in these supplementary estimates has corresponding performance targets." In other words, to put it a bit more bluntly, are we going to get our money's worth? Mr. Speaker, when is the government going to regain control over public spending? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy to stand up today because all week long this member has said things, and I'd like to set the record straight. This government, in the past 12 months, has created 139,600 jobs in Canada. That's the number. And that's thanks to our plan to invest in Canadian families, in the middle class, in youth and seniors. Mr. Speaker, even though the Conservative Party voted against all the steps we took to help Canadian families and youth, we will continue with that plan, and that is the number. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. When it comes to free trade with the U.S. and Mexico, everybody sees what an amateur the Prime Minister was when he showed his hand. Mr. Trump has always taken aim at Mexico, never Canada. The issue was with Mexicans, not Canadian workers. Never before has a head of government shown his cards so voluntarily. Way to go, champ. Why has the Prime Minister put Canadian jobs at risk? Why is he being such an amateur? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, no cards have been played. We have a deal, NAFTA, which has been very positive for Canada. That deal has been positive for the U.S. too. Mr. Speaker, 35 states in the U.S. have Canada as their main export destination. So it's very important to both countries. So we, in good faith, are going to talk with the U.S. government to make improvements as needed. The honourable member for Rimouski, Neigette, Témiscouata, Basque. Mr. Speaker, Canadians rightly feel betrayed by the Liberals. During the election campaign, they said there would be small deficits to invest public infrastructure, but now they're going to be much bigger, and the Liberals want to allow their Bay Street cronies to pocket tolls and user fees. And what's more, $15 billion has been redirected from cities like Rimouski and Jonquière in order to attract private capital, and that will be invested in Toronto or Montreal. Once again, why do the Liberals hide their plan to impose tolls and user fees on Canadians during the election campaign? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
On a platform to invest more than $120 billion in infrastructure over the next decade. We increased that commitment from $120 billion to $180 billion under the fiscal update. Only 8% of that is actually being used under the bank to build more infrastructure for Canadian communities from coast to coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for North Island, Powell River.
The Liberal platform said that the infrastructure bank would, quote, provide low-cost financing for new infrastructure projects. It did not say that it would provide high-cost financing so Liberals' Bay Street friends can line their pockets. It did not say that Liberals would take $15 billion from communities like mine in North Island, Powell River to create this privatization bank that will do nothing for small communities. Exactly. And surprise, surprise, it didn't mention tolls or user fees. Simple question. Why weren't the Liberals honest with Canadians?
Yeah, Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I am surprised that the member opposite will not actually understand our infrastructure plan, where we're investing more than $180 billion into infrastructure that is go far beyond our initial commitment. And the role of the bank is absolutely, she's right, that is to provide low-cost loans to municipalities that they can do more infrastructure with less cost to them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for North Island, Powell River.
7 to 9% is not low cost, Mr. Speaker.
Exactly.
Over the last 2 decades, more than 10,000 Canadians have died from opioids, and an untold number now suffer from addiction. Will the government agree to take action by creating a national task force and repeal Bill C-2 to remove unnecessary barriers to opening new harm reduction facilities? And will the Liberal government immediately declare the opioid crisis a national public health emergency? Action is needed now to help save lives.
Honourable Parliament Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are in a national public health crisis in Canada. The growing number of overdoses and deaths caused by opioids is a complex emergency. Building on our 5-point action plan to address opioid misuse, today and tomorrow, the Minister of Health is co-hosting a conference and summit on opioids to bring together experts patient groups, governments, and regulators to discuss the current crisis and identify actions moving forward. We will continue to work with law enforcement and all our partners to bring forward compassionate and collaborative solutions to address the immediate crisis alongside their root causes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Député de Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot.
Gentleman member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagot. Mr. Speaker, too many Canadians have died and too many lives are jeopardized by opioid addiction. In the past 20 years, over 10,000 Canadians have died from opioids, and many more are addicted currently. There is a clear consensus. Effective federal leadership and coordination are needed to reduce the number of deaths due to overdose in Canada. Is the minister willing to show some leadership? Will she declare a national public health emergency? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Health Minister.
And as I said previously, we are in a national public health crisis here in Canada. The growing number of overdoses and deaths caused by opiates is a complex emergency. And building on our 5-point action plan to address opioid crisis misuse, today and tomorrow the Minister of Health is co-hosting a conference on opioid summit to bring together experts, patient groups, regulators, and governments to discuss the current crisis and identify actions moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, allow me to explain to the government the great Liberal paradox when it comes to softwood. Softwood comes from evergreens, also known as coniferous trees. The government's incapable of negotiating with the Americans because they're soft too. The Liberal paradox is that when the Liberals are soft on negotiating, it's hard to look at. Thousands of Canadian jobs are at risk. When is this government going to get down to work to defend our regions, our workers, and our families? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, we've been getting down to work since we first took office. We've been working with our American counterparts, with Minister Froman, with the whole USDR. We've been working with our own producers, with our own workers all across the country. We're in constant contact with them, and we're negotiating strenuously to come up with a deal that's acceptable to Canada. We will strike a deal, but not any old deal.
Okanagan Shoe Swap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 40% of BC's regional economies and hundreds of small businesses across Canada depend on the forest industry. Last March, the Trade Minister committed to having a structure for softwood lumber agreement in place in 100 days. 252 days later, still no deal. Will this minister ever get an agreement respecting our forest industry, or will the Prime Minister finally appoint a new minister that will?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, as I said a moment ago in French, we've been hard at work on this file from the beginning. We do have a framework within which we are working with our American partners. That was elaborated by our minister and her counterpart, USTR Michael Froman. We are consulting Canadians across the country in the industry, every province, workers, small companies, large companies. We understand the importance of the issue, Mr. Speaker. We're going to negotiate an agreement, and we're going to negotiate a good agreement.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Mr. Speaker, each time it gets the chance, this Liberal government shows its disdain for Canadian farmers. No mention of agriculture in the throne speech, total inaction on diafiltered milk, and now a transition program that's totally bungled and doesn't meet the needs of dairy farmers. All farmers will be affected by the arrival of European product, but only a fraction of dairy farmers will be eligible for the Liberals' program. It's unacceptable. Why the flagrant disrespect for Canadian dairy farmers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I'm really frustrated by that question. My colleague has one of his own teammates wants to scrap supply management. We've invested $350 million in helping the dairy industry cope with these changes. and the new conditions, market conditions, the money will be invested strategically. Producers are investing, and we're going to work alongside with them. We have set up a program that reflects the feedback we've got from the industry.
Speaker, experts from the Conference Board of Canada, the Bank of Montreal, the TD Bank, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and the Department of Finance have all said there are no signs of economic growth. Mr. Speaker, 0 new full-time jobs have been created since the Liberals took office. Less than 1% of infrastructure projects have started construction. The Liberals promised Canadians that deficits would create jobs and grow the economy. The Liberals promised, and clearly, their plan is not working. Can the minister explain to Canadians why he has failed to create one single job from his infrastructure announcements?
Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me take the opportunity to again tell the House and the Canadians that since taking office, our government has approved more than 980 projects throughout the country with the combined value of more than $12 billion from coast to coast to coast, as well as a matter of fact, one project is in her member's own city, helping design the long-term LRT plan that is actually helping that city to advance so they can take on the opportunities to build more infrastructure when we announce our long-term plan for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Deputy de Beauport.
The honourable member for Beauport. Mr. Speaker, the Infrastructure Bank is like Liberal ministers' fundraising cocktail parties that are reserved for a small group of Liberal cronies. You really have to be out of touch with reality and the regions to create a bank that will fund only projects worth $100 million and over, which will exclude all small towns and villages. Mr. Speaker, who in this government, of the 40 Quebec Liberal members, is defending the interests of the regions of Quebec? The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Speaker, let me share again that since taking over, we have approved more than $1.5 billion for projects in Quebec. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Finance announced $2 billion for small communities, unheard of in the recent Canadian history. So we are delivering on behalf of Canadians throughout the country, big cities, small cities, as well as rural communities. Let me quote the president of FCM, what he has to say about our infrastructure plan. He says, these unprecedented infrastructure investments.
Unfortunately, there's not quite enough time to fit that in. The honourable member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, young Canadians work hard to put themselves through school so they can get a great paying job and buy a house, perhaps raise a family. But they're being told by this finance minister that they should get used to more precarious work. Liberals cancelled the small business tax cuts, and we know that increasing payroll and carbon taxes will make it harder for young workers to get their first job. And even if they are lucky enough to start working and to save what's left after they pay their student loans and these Liberal tax hikes, Mr. Speaker, fewer now qualify for a mortgage. Will this government explain why it's making life harder for young Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Employment and Workforce Development.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. It gives me an opportunity to indicate how seriously we are working to address the challenges faced by young people in Canada. Unprecedented change is occurring here in Canada and all first world countries, in fact, the whole world. We have not only doubled the number of work opportunities in the summer, but we will be rolling out an intensive and comprehensive program called Work Integrated Learning in cooperation with the business community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cowichan, Malahat Langford.
Not only have the Liberals left women behind with their new CPP legislation, but seniors everywhere are still waiting for the Liberals to deliver on their promise of a new Seniors Price Index. Here we are in November. The Liberals have failed to come through with their promise of a better way to index old age security and guaranteed income supplement benefits. Mr. Speaker, seniors are struggling to make ends meet with the high cost of living. If the Liberals can't keep this promise, can the minister tell us what other promises he's prepared to break for our seniors?
The Honourable Minister for Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to point out how quickly the Government of Canada established significant and meaningful steps to help our seniors, particularly those living in difficult circumstances. We've boosted the old age security and the guaranteed income supplement, which will help the most needy seniors. We've also provided funding for housing, which will help vulnerable Canadians. So we're working very hard, Mr. Speaker, to meet the needs of seniors in Canada. The Honourable Member for Laurier St. Marie. Mr. Speaker, last month, a UN committee voted in favour of full nuclear disarmament. Unfortunately, Canada did not support that initiative. Whereas other countries are moving forward in this arena seriously, this government is dragging its feet. Will Canada take some leadership and support nuclear disarmament efforts and take part in the negotiations that will begin next year? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Minister is entirely dedicated to nuclear disarmament. Our goal is to convince countries that have nuclear weapons to be at the table as part of an effective disarmament process. Canada succeeded at this when we led a United Nations resolution supported by 177 states, including those with nuclear weapons, recently. Our resolution has a goal to stop the production of materials used to make nuclear weapons. This is the realistic, pragmatic approach our minister is taking, and it was a major accomplishment. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, climate change policy should tangibly reduce greenhouse gas emissions without punishing the Canadian economy. The problem with the Liberals' approach is that we know that they have no evidence to show that it's actually going to work, that it's actually going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But we do know that it's going to cost the Canadian economy and cost Canadian families. So, Mr. Speaker, under our former government, we actually saw greenhouse gas emissions decrease while the economy grew. So I have a very simple question. Mr. Speaker. What price elasticity assumptions did the government use in modeling their carbon tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Our government is committed to creating a cleaner, more innovative economy that reduces emissions and protects the environment while creating well-paying jobs for Canadians. Setting a benchmark price on carbon pollution is one component of a broad approach to addressing climate change, something that the previous government did nothing to address, while providing certainty and predictability to businesses. After a decade of inaction on the part of the previous government, we are about taking firm action to address greenhouse gas emissions while creating good middle-class jobs for Canadians.
Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take that as code for I have no idea. Anyways, Mr. Speaker, let's go with something more simple. Right now, the Liberals are putting uncertainty into the regulatory process for natural resources. They're not doing anything for Canadians that are out of work in Alberta. They're not standing up for the development of new pipelines. They're putting a carbon tax in place that's going to do nothing for greenhouse gas emissions. I could go on and on and on. So if they can't answer that question, why don't they just have the courage to call it for what it is? National Energy Program 2.0.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I suggest the honourable member listen to some of the voices of Canadian industry, companies like Suncor, companies like Enbridge, companies like Shell, who are in support of a carbon price as part of an overall economic strategy and a strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Let me quote, Mr. Speaker, the Desjardins Group CEO who said, quote, Desjardins Group supports the federal government's decision. Desjardins believes that the time has come for all sectors of the economy to include climate change considerations into their strategic plans, to take advantage of business opportunities, to reduce risks, and to meet the needs of Canadians.
Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock. Order.
Mr. Speaker, my friend Lawrence Morris is a retired senior who lives in Fort Assiniboine on a very limited income. A carbon tax will significantly increase his costs for groceries, his cost for his heat bill, his cost for gasoline, to the point that he may not be able to stay in his home. This is a reality for many rural seniors across Canada. Why are the Liberals pushing a carbon tax on rural Canadians and forcing seniors like Mr. Morris out of their homes?
Good question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of the Environment.
Speaker, unlike the Conservatives, we're focused on supporting middle-class families and their families at every stage of their life. Not only did the Conservatives vote against the Paris Agreement when it comes to addressing climate change, but they also voted against reducing taxes for 9 million Canadians. They voted against a child benefit that helps 9 out of 10 Canadian families and will raise 300,000 Canadian children out of poverty. They voted against enhancements to student loans, which will help 250,000 Canadian students. Our government is focused on both protecting the environment while growing the economy in a sustainable way.
Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, whenever we point out that this carbon tax will hurt Canada's poor, they stand up and quote powerful millionaire and billionaire CEOs to defend their policy. You know, the 800,000 Canadians that rely on the food bank in order to nourish their children every day, Mr. Speaker, they don't take any comfort in quotes from millionaire CEOs. In fact, food bank uses up over 300,000 kids are relying on food bank for their nutrition. Mr. Speaker, why is the Liberal government so determined to raise food prices by increasing taxes on the people who deliver our food?
Honourable Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following my earlier colleagues' comments on the fact that we are working very hard to grow the economy and to grow the middle class and working very hard to decrease poverty among our children and seniors, I would be curious to know why our Conservative friends have been opposing systematically all measures working in favour of the middle class and working towards lower poverty in Canada.
Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
The United Nations Committee on Discrimination Against Women has just expressed serious concerns with the inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. They say the inquiry isn't taking a human rights approach, that it doesn't have the mandate to look into policing or look into unresolved cases. These concerns echo exactly what we've heard from the families of missing and murdered mothers, daughters, sisters. Will the government finally respond to these concerns? And will the government finally listen to the voices of families?
The Honourable Minister of Indigenous Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. And I welcome the opportunity to clarify the fact that the Commission does indeed have the mandate to look into policing, does indeed have a broad mandate for them to do exactly what the families have asked for, which is to deal with the issues of the causes and also making sure that the families will be supported, particularly with the new liaison units set up by the Minister of Justice to do just that.
Deputy Drummond.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, the Minister of Heritage announced her intention to modernize regulations surrounding bilingual service delivery in Canada. That's good news. However, the Liberal government seems to want to draw these consultations out, and they won't lead to tangible regulations before 2019. Really? Can the Liberal government commit to not shelve the consultation report and to table a real bill that will guarantee that these regulations will be sustainable and strictly enforced?
The
President of the Treasury Board. Mr. Speaker, thank you. I have the pleasure to announce that the government will completely review the regulation surrounding the delivery of bilingual services to Canadians to ensure that communities, Francophone and Anglophone, are well served.
Mr. Speaker, the offices that had been slated to become unilingual under the current regulations will be subject to a moratorium. They will continue to provide services in both official languages until we introduce new and improved, modernized regulations in replace the current regulations. Mr. Speaker, this is a priority for our government to offer.
The Honourable Member for Preston, Sackville, Sessacook.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Dans mon
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my riding and across the country, Canadians are concerned about the application of the official languages policy or guidelines on service to the public. They're worried about access to services in their language. These services are important for Francophone and Anglophone minorities across the country. These communities are the culture and economic pillars of their areas. Can the President of the Treasury Board advise this House of the work that's been done and the steps that will be taken in this area?
The President of the Treasury
Board. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague The member for Sackville, Preston, Chesapeake. Our government will ensure that services offered to Canadian are offered in the official language of their choice. Our government will be undertaking a complete review of service.
Offices currently subject to becoming unilingual, 257 of them will continue to be bilingual. Our government is committed to improving and strengthening bilingual services for all Canadians.
Member for Lakeland.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of Albertans are out of work and have been for over a year, and not one additional full-time job has been created in Canada under the Liberals in that same time. Meanwhile, the U.S. President-elect said he will approve Keystone XL within 100 days of taking office, but our Natural Resources Minister says it's, quote, not a priority. With the U.S. ramping up and pursuing energy independence, time is of the essence. When will the Prime Minister prioritize Canadian jobs and get this deal done before it's too late?
The Honourable Minister for Science, Innovation and Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear that jobs is a priority for our government. As the Parliamentary Secretary mentioned earlier today, we've created 139,600 jobs. These jobs are across the country, including Alberta. Just to highlight some examples with respect to jobs, Mr. Speaker, we supported the relocation of Bell Helicopter, which created 1,000 jobs in Quebec. We created GM Canada, expanded its engineering and software development. Again, these help young people to find meaningful employment. 1,000 jobs for them as well. So these are good jobs across the country, Mr. Speaker.
For Lakeland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in 2014, 9 out of 10 new jobs created in all of Canada were created in Alberta. But today, Alberta's job losses are the highest in nearly 22 years. Pipelines are lifelines for Alberta and for hundreds of thousands of energy workers across the country. Canada's world-leading oil and gas is at risk. The biggest customer, the U.S., has become the biggest competitor. Canada must diversify export markets now. The more delays, the less competitive Canada becomes. When will the minister stop the roadblocks and fight for Canadian energy jobs?
Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I'm a little bit confused by the member's question because this will now be the fourth time this week when I have said that the government is actually very confident in the Keystone XL pipeline. We supported the application in the first place. All of the approvals north of the border are in place. And if the company decides to pursue the application, this government will support it for the fourth time this week.
Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. UN peacekeeping missions are among the most dangerous deployments in the world. For example, 106 UN peacekeepers have already died in the UN Mali operation. Now, despite the dangers to our troops, the Liberals are still keeping Canadians in the dark about where they intend to deploy Canadian troops on the planned peacekeeping mission. Now, can the minister be transparent with Canadians and tell us, how is this in our national interest? Will it be a combat mission? And how long will our troops be deployed? Canadians deserve to know this, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our re-engagement with peace operations is part of our broader commitment to re-energize Canadian leadership on key international issues and multilateral institutions. There have been multiple fact-finding trips, and the Minister has had productive discussions with counterparts, with NGOs, and with organizations involved with peace support organizations. We are building our understanding of the situation on the ground. We are investigating how we can contribute with a whole-of-government approach. No decision has been made on those future contributions, but we will share when it has.
Député de Portneuf.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Parliamentary Secretary is consulting, that's what she's saying. Again, regarding the mission in Iraq, the Prime Minister, back when he was in opposition, said he couldn't support any mission unless the reasons justifying it were openly disclosed. Now, we're still waiting for that justification. In the case of the mission in Africa, the government is improvising and making it up on the fly. When will the Liberals finally be transparent and explain, A, where our soldiers will be deployed, B, what the objectives of the mission are, and, above all, under what conditions?
Secretary of Parliament.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we take very seriously the plans to employ members of the Canadian Forces around the world. Having been a member for 31 years, I can tell you that that is indeed the case. And I'm very content. I'm happy the way the government is progressing on this particular issue. They are doing their homework. They are talking to their allies. They are planning on the ground. And no decision has been made. And they're going to make that decision based on that whole of government approach so we can make a success of this mission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Anchors is an HIV/AIDS outreach and support society in my riding of South Okanagan, West Kootenay. For many years, Anchors has been providing prevention and harm reduction services to at-risk populations in 24 communities in the BC interior. But they have just been informed that their federal funding will not be renewed.
Shameful.
This will devastate HIV/AIDS outreach services in the BC interior. Will the Health Minister reverse these cuts and ensure that the people in the Okanagan and Kootenays have access to these vital services?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, HIV and Hep C are serious but preventable diseases, and our government is committed to addressing them, with community-based organizations being central to this. The funding we provide is remaining steady at $26.4 million annually. While 124 organizations were successfully in the application process, some were not. The Minister of Health has asked the Public Health Agency of Canada to assist these impacted organizations by working with them to extend transitional funding for another year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, dangerous debris from a cargo ship is washing up on the West Coast, posing serious threats to our sensitive ecosystems. It's been almost a week since this began, and there's still no real action by the federal government. We know their response to the Bella Bella diesel spill has been shamefully inadequate. So will the federal government take immediate action to help with this cleanup? And will they support community groups like Surfrider and local First Nations to prevent any further environmental damage from this debris?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thank you to my honourable colleague for that question. Our government remains committed to improving marine safety in Canada and ensuring the protection of our marine environment. This incident underlines the need for change, and that is why the minister announced a plan to enhance marine safety in a meaningful way. Furthermore, the minister is looking at the matter of compensation. We will take the necessary action on the findings of the department's compliance inspection and the TSB's investigation to enhance marine safety in Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, hundreds of Canadians are dying every single month from illicit opioids flooding our borders. These drugs are so powerful, Mr. Speaker, that a small amount the size of a grain of salt can kill you. Last month, a 9-month-old was hospitalized from being exposed to carfentanil, an illegal opioid 100 times stronger than fentanyl, yet the health minister is only consulting now. Mr. Speaker, when will the minister acknowledge that China is the primary source of the problem and start cracking down on these illicit drug shipments?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Our government is very concerned by the arrival of opiate drugs in Canada. The Border Services Agency has conducted more than 8,000 seizures, representing $400 million. And we are currently examining ways of improving the ability to detect and intercept illicit drugs. We share the concern of Canadians and their loss, and we are working diligently to put an end to the arrival of this drug here.
Speaker, the health minister refused any organizations such as CPM Centers for Pain Management to attend our opioid summit. The Liberals have stated that doctors who prescribe opioids are a primary cause of this crisis, yet they're not invited to help find a solution that works for their patients. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because these organizations have a different view and perspective than the government. So how can the health minister claim to be consulting on the opioid crisis when she won't even talk to pain management doctors on the ground who she blames for being a source of the problem?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we are in a national public health crisis in Canada. The growing number of overdoses and deaths caused by opioids is a complex emergency. Today and tomorrow, the Minister of Health is co-hosting a conference and a summit on opioids to bring groups like the Canadian Medical Association, the College of Family Physicians of Canada, the National and Provincial Colleges of Physician and Surgeon, as well as the Canadian Pain Society to discuss the current crisis and identify a path forward. Stakeholders and members of the public that are unable to attend due to the space restrictions are invited to view the conference by the following live webcast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bow River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alberta and Saskatchewan ranchers are reeling from a single case of bovine tuberculosis. CFIA is quarantining and starting to test herds, but ranchers are being told they cannot sell their animals until all herds are tested, which can take many months. These producers do not have shelter or feed for these animals for the winter. The CFIA are forcing ranchers to hold their animals until they're all tested TB-free. Will the Liberals compensate them for the feeding and housing of these quarantined animals over the winter?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, each time a mandatory disease is identified in Canada, we take steps to ensure that operations are not perturbed. With respect to the taking of adequate measures, these measures are essential to protect the health of cattle in this country. There is an investigation and it involves analysis at the farm. The CIA is identifying these situations, and compensation will be provided in the event of tuberculosis.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Citizenship and Immigration. In my riding